Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Players to watch for this Miami Hurricanes program going up against Iowa State in the bowl game. This is, to me, largely how I approach these kind of bowl games, where you're going to get the opportunity to see a lot of young talent play some football and kind of get a feel for what guys, what youngsters on our roster are going to be difference makers for us in 2025. And you look at Miami and say, hey, they're losing a lot of talent to the NFL draft. There's no secret about that. Obviously, headlined by Cam Moore, but you got guys like Xavier Restrepo going on as well. What I think a lot of the national media does not understand, and we do because we talk about it 12 months a year with this Miami Hurricanes team on the recruiting trail, is that there's also a lot of young talent on this football team too. So on paper, it might look like Miami's losing a lot of production after the 2024 year. There's a lot of guys that I know a lot of Miami fans are really excited to see how well they can fill those shoes. Those are the players that we're looking for on Saturday afternoon against Iowa State. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, to the Miami Hurricane fans, let it fly in the comment section. I picked my top 5. Would love to hear some other names that you guys have in the comment section. This is what makes the Miami Hurricane Bowl game so fun, is when we talk about them on the recruiting trail 12 months a year. So now we get a chance to see a lot of them get some real burn in this kind of football game. So I know I'm fired up. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one, and let's start at the wide receiver position. Now, there's a couple of guys you could start talking about, right? Jojo Trader is the one I'm going to go with. Nikar, certainly on my list. A guy like Ray Joseph on my list, as well, as we look for who could potentially replace a guy like Xavier Restrepo in 2025. Now, why I went with Jojo Traders, I do think he probably has the highest ceiling at the wide receiver spot. He's got some freaky movement skills for a young kid going back to his time out of high school. Now, you looking on paper say, all right, Isaiah Horton going to Alabama, Xavier Restrepo hitting the or not going to the NFL draft, not hitting the transfer portal. Jacoby George going to the NFL draft. A lot of pass catching production that's moving on from this wide receiver room. Guys like Jojo Trader, guys like Nikar, guys like Ray Joseph. Those are the guys we're looking at and saying, all right, how well can these youngsters kind of pick off where some of these veterans left off in 2024? That's what you're looking at. Now, you bring in a veteran like CJ Daniels, but I was one of those that kind of said, I don't think Miami needs to bring in 2 or 3 wide receivers. Like, I'm not going to say no to a guy like CJ Daniels, who I think is a really good football player, but I think you have the talent on your roster right now to make a really good wide receiver room in the 2025 season. And a guy like Jojo Trader, if Miami does have that kind of room, it is going to play a massive role. And what I'm most excited about Jojo Trader is, what does the physicality look like? What does the polish on the route runs look like? Or the routes that he runs look like? Jojo Trader, we don't have any question marks about what he can be physically. Does he have that kind of nuance to his game? Is it a really good athlete playing football, or are we a good athlete that knows how to play the wide receiver position? Going to my next one on the list, I want to go to tight end Elijah Lofton, a guy that I think if Elijah Arroyo hadn't been so good, probably would have played a lot more. And you could tell Miami was doing everything they could to get this kid on the football field. You look at his snap counts, played over 250 snaps, 33 in the backfield, 66 in line, 28 out on the slot. There was a quote that I read in spring practice 8 months ago that said, Elijah Lofton is the best football player on the field in spring practice. And we saw glimpses of it during that 2024 season as a true freshman at that tight end spot. It's rare to see tight ends play the amount Elijah Lofton did as a true freshman. I thought that was really impressive. A guy that takes a lot of pride in his blocking, in kind of a unique tight end where he's only 6'3". He's not in any kind of Brevin Jordan vibes, quite frankly, but a guy that can be a matchup nightmare. And not a lot of defensive backs can deal with the size and movement skills combination. Now, with Elijah Roy going to the draft, Riley Williams hitting the portal, Miami's a little bit thin at the tight end spot. And you go a long way in answering our questions at that position if Elijah Lofton looks the part in this bowl game against Iowa State. And that's not a shot at a guy like Brock Schott coming in as a freshman that I think is going to be a dude, or a guy like Luka Gilbert. But it's rare to see tight ends play a ton as freshmen. And so Elijah Lofton, I think for a lot of Miami Hurricane fans, is going to be the guy in 2025. And if Emory Williams is your starting quarterback, there's nothing better you can do for a young quarterback than give him a difference maker at tight end. Elijah Lofton can be that guy. Does he look like that guy on the football field against Iowa State? Now, going to the defensive side of the football, obviously the position that a lot of people want to address. Let's start on the defensive line, Justin Scott. You guys are probably seeing a little bit of a pattern here, just going to my favorite recruits from the 2024 class. It was a really good class. And this is about the year you got to start relying on your high school guys, right? I'm not surprised that Miami hasn't gone out and landed 15 names in the transfer portal like some other programs, because I think there's a lot of confidence within that building that these youngsters on our roster are going to be ready in 2025. It's always fun to talk about new players coming into the program. For me in Miami, I'm looking at them and saying, what I'm most excited about is the young talent going into 2025. Justin Scott, probably one of the most important players to Miami. And we got to improve on the defensive line. Justin Scott has every ability to be a game wrecker for the Miami Hurricanes. What does he look like? Quite frankly, thought he probably should have been playing more as a true freshman, a guy that there's not many freshmen that come into the Power 4 level and immediately look the part. Like Ruben Bain was kind of he's a rare guy. Justin Scott, I thought, looked the part and thought he deserved maybe some more opportunity within that Miami Hurricanes defense. You look at him, you get David Blake coming in the transfer portal. Ahmad Moten is really starting to hit his stride. You probably put him on the list too of guys I'm excited to watch play. Look at the interior defensive line with the addition of David Blay and say, yeah, I get you're losing Simeon Bear. I get you're losing CJ Clark. I feel pretty dang good about where the interior defensive line sits with the addition of David Blay. Next one I want to talk about, Bobby Pruitt at linebacker. We've talked about this. Miami is trying to get more athletic at linebacker. That was one of the weaker spots for this Hurricanes defense in 2024. You could tell a team like Georgia Tech was saying, hey, we're just going to get to the perimeter, and we don't think your linebackers can get out in space fast enough. And largely Georgia Tech was right. And you saw teams try to challenge these linebackers in space. And as good as Kiko was in 2023, teams did a really good job kind of putting him outside his comfort zone. Kiko is a hammer linebacker. You know, he wants to play inside the box. He wants to stack and shed blocks and play within a phone booth. Team said, all right, we're not going to run right at you. We're going to get you in space. And you saw Miami really struggle at the off-ball linebacker spot, getting out in space. I don't think it's a coincidence that you look at the names coming into the program and the names that Miami's going after in the transfer portal linebacker. It's the athletic linebackers. All right, they might not be 240, but they're really good athletes. And that is where college football is going. You know, at the end of the day, opposing offenses, the name of the game in college football is speed and space. Like, can we get our playmakers in space with the football in their hands and let them go to work? If you want to defend against that type of offense, you got to have linebackers that can go tackle running backs in the flat and carry tight ends up the seam and go tackle in space. Kiko struggled with that. Guy like Bobby Pruitt, although needs to put on a little bit more weight, which I think he will in this offseason, he didn't really look like he lacked any sort of physicality on the football field. I have a feeling he's going to get a lot of burn. I want to see what he looks like. And then lastly, Zaquan Patterson at safety. Look, this Miami Hurricane secondary is a problem. I don't think I'm giving any expert analysis on that. You're suddenly feeling really good about the cornerback spot, right? OJ Frederick coming back, Emmanuel Carnley, Charles Brandley. Those are three bona fide starting boundary cornerbacks. The safety position is the biggest concern. Now, you're bringing a guy like Zachariah Poise, who I think is a legit difference maker, but you also got to have two safeties on the football field. We got to find another one that can play. Now, is that answer going to be in the transfer portal, or is that answer going to be a guy like Zaquan Patterson? Zaquan Patterson at times in 2024, along with a lot of members of this Miami Hurricanes secondary, looked like he was confused, for a lack of better terms. You know, we know what Zaquan Patterson can do physically. We watched him coming out of high school plenty. The thing with Zaquan Patterson was he looked like he was thinking too much and not going out and playing, which is reasonable to expect for a true freshman. Does he look like he's taking that step? He's a guy that if I'm Miami, I'm playing a lot. And I want to figure out, hey, do we think Zaquan Patterson can emerge as a reliable safety for us going out to 2025? Because if he doesn't, I think you know what you have with Jaden Harris. I think you need to bring in another safety. But if Zaquan Patterson, now almost being within this program for 12 months, if he looks like he can do it and has looked like he's taking steps, you might have some dudes with Zach Poyser and Zaquan Patterson, but we got to see it from Zaquan before we feel damn good about the safety position heading into the 2025 season. Those are my 5 to watch. We'll break the game down after it concludes on Saturday afternoon. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.